Welcome to the SJ Child Show, where a little bit of knowledge can turn fear into understanding. Enjoy the show. Hi, welcome to the SJ Child Show today. I'm really excited to start this conversation. Chantal is someone who I've been looking forward to having on the show. I think we might have even had to reschedule once before, and I'm so glad, for graciousness and understanding. And thank you so much for being here today and making your time available for us. I'm so excited to share our conversation with my fantastic, wonderful listeners. And please tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, and we'll just go from there.
Okay, that sounds great. And thank you so much for having me on. And you're absolutely right. We did need to reschedule, which was a moment of ADHD burnout. I had taken on so much and then recognized I don't have the time for all of this. So
I
I
thought it was me
appreciate
to
your
tell you the
grace.
truth. Right? Hey, that's mine too. A testament to mine as well.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Okay. And so as I was preparing for this show, like mentally just like, okay, what do I want to talk about? I just went back to like, okay, what do I do and who am I and how do I show up in this world? And so I have a private practice, which is a blend of therapy and coaching called Pyramid Psychology, where we focus specifically on supporting teens. So anyone from kind of 11 to 21, we really cover the span of adolescence as much as we can, although we know the brain just keeps on developing well into its 20s.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we offer different types of supports, really at the core, trying to highlight and help teen girls really find their inner resources and their outer resources so that they can become the resilient people that they are.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? And I think that just like, life itself, this couldn't have come at a better time in my life for us to have this conversation. You often find that things show up for you in times when you really need them. And having a 12 and 14-year-old and a 12-year-old daughter now it's an essential time in not only her life, but in my parenting her to really understand how to show up for her, how to honor her um, zest for independence, her, you know, love of learning, but her also curiosity of what the world has to offer right now for her and how much kind of can she test in a good way. She's a good kid, but how much can they test to really like get that independence that they're really yearning for inside, and how we as parents can provide this environment for them that's healthy, safe, and still you still have to deal with all of the craziness that is today, which is a lot.
Totally. And what does that call forth from us as parents? Like, I think that's a big thing too. And I love the way you framed that because I had a shift a couple of years ago where I would hear myself saying things like, yeah, like teens today, it's so different, it's so hard, like they're contending with so much. And I would hear other parents say that back to me too. And I was thinking, there is some truth to that this is a different world than say I grew up in or my parents grew up in. And at the same time, I was recognizing that that was not serving anybody, to keep talking about this story that is like, it's so hard, they can't handle it, they're dealing with so much. And when I heard one day, I think I heard it on maybe a podcast or something, it was someone had said, what if we could imagine that every teen and every youth and every child had that kind of like built-in capacity to handle the time that they live in, and that our journey or our goal, or which whatever you have it as parents, is to like foster that place where they can grow those seeds and stuff. I thought, wow, okay, yes, that is how I'm going to look at it. How can parents hold that belief and show up in a way that's going to help teens thrive and be okay in this world?
Oh, it's so tricky. And,
So
I
tricky.
think I have a little bit of a head start, if you'll call it. I have a stepdaughter, she's 24. I
Hmm.
was raising her since she was 4. So 20 years now I've been in the parenting mindset, let's say. But the beginning years were formed from my own version of how parenting was for me. And now here we are 20 years later. It looks nowhere close to what it used to be, and all of the learning and all of the trying new things, if you will. She's my third, and the baby, even at 12, still the baby. And so there's this different aspect to raising her. Not only that, but I realized really early on that one thing, and I know listeners, I know you've heard me say this before, but I think it's so important to share and to just instill in anyone that's listening, is that when she was really little, I would say to her, now, I want you to always remember, you are like, you love yourself first. You don't love mommy more, daddy more, grandma more. You love me. You love yourself first. That's what always comes first. And she's really like, that confidence has stayed within her. And yes, it's like rocky times, like you said, and it is hard. The world is hard, but she's resilient. And I
Mm,
see that. And I'm not saying that it's a fixed thing and it can't be gone either way. However, right now, in the sense where she's at, the I see her going through these struggles, but I also am following up with her on the back end saying, now, are you really feeling like these feelings of like really deep depression or confusion about things? And she'll be, so no, like, I'm okay. Yeah,
yeah.
like, I need someone to talk to, and she'll share these things with me. So, but it's challenging, isn't it? And setting those things up, though, I was so lucky to have that years of experience to go in there and then be like, okay, start this one over fresh. Bless
Let's
the
try it
empty
this way.
totes.
Yeah. Yeah. When you spoke about the struggle and the resiliency piece, it just also reminded me of something to just hear as a parent and to hear over and over again, is that it's not meant to be flawless, right? It's not meant to be, there are no bumps in the road. And I think sometimes we don't recognize that, and we get really hard on ourselves, or think, worst case scenario when our children and teens are struggling, where in fact those struggles, the ones that are I guess like the healthy struggles, if you will, or the struggles that they can overcome, those are the ones that grow their self-confidence, that grow their resilience. And we want our kids to be able to make mistakes and to falter and then pick themselves back up, and shake it off and be like, okay, let's keep going.
Yeah. And I think when they get older in this adolescence, we forget that and just like you just said, we want them to fall down and pick themselves up, just like they did when they were little. And we had to let them learn how to walk. We had to let them learn how to fall down and pick themselves up. It's never ending. It like
Mhm.
literally has to, but you just have to learn where your role is in their life at that time to help, foster those things and let them know that there's a soft landing, or a hand to pick them back up, or whatever it may be. And I read something today, it was probably a meme or a quote or something, that said along the lines of, if you're making mistakes, you're being a perfect human. I love that because
Yes.
we're not saying be perfect. We're saying make mistakes so that you can be human, so that you can be authentically yourself and just learn just like all the rest of us are doing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's
Mhm.
tricky because I think parents put so much pressure on themselves to know or control. They want to just they want to know too much. They want to be in too much of control of things, and I think they lose sight of what damage that can do sometimes in a relationship. And you can really think about it in any relationship. How much control do you put in relationships along,
Mhm.
in other places of your life? And you can't you have to learn how to let go. And
Yeah.
what do you think? So, say that I'm just a family who has struggled with communication, who's having a teen that's just, we're not communicating well together. Where do we start? What do
Where
you
do
help
we?
people? Where do we
Yeah.
start?
When it comes to, well, I think like one thing that I find really important is to take a step back and offer ourselves some grace from the whole thing that we've been talking about before. Like this, okay, yeah, this communication thing has been a struggle. Maybe I haven't shown up in the way I've wanted. Maybe we've been arguing a lot, and doing a from now on, knowing that the from now on may not also be perfect, and that's not the point. But it's like
Hmm.
from now on, I'm going to show up in this way, or I'm going to focus on. And I tend to go back to the relationship. And I tend to go back to with parents is kind of trying to figure out what for them is really important. So I'm going to use the word values, but I think sometimes that doesn't necessarily make sense to folks. They're like, I don't know. But going back to like what what really is important to you, what matters to you, and at the end of the day, often it's things like, in 10 years, I want to be able to like chat with my daughter about what's going on in their lives. I want them to share their experiences with me. In 30 years, I want to maybe like be a grandparent and just like loving and doting. And it's like that's what you get to is like, okay, so that's great. So the relationship matters to you. So from now on, what if we started with just that small actions that are going to start building the relationship?
Mm. So simple and tangible. And not only that, but measurable if you are meaningful about it. I mean, you can write it down, you could make yourself a self-contract somehow. And not that it can't be changed, in the way that things always do change. So you have to be mindful of that always. But especially in navigating what things are going to come up for them that you can't even like consider already or have any idea about because it's
Yeah.
who knows what's coming, right?
Yeah.
In the form of the future. But I love that you said that because what are your values? And I think that it's so important that we see that those things that you said are so much more important than, oh, they have to get an A in this math class.
Mhm.
They have to not be on the phone after 10 p.m. Like those things that we nitpick at, and I know that they're important to some people. I'm not trying to say that they're not important or don't also have their own space, but what the ultimate goal in, well, like you said, I love that you put it out so far and so in those terms. It gives you a better idea of who you want to be yourself as a parent.
Oh. Yeah. And then bringing it to these maybe these really tangible things like what could that look like in the day to day. Sometimes I will use this tool with parents, which is and with teens actually. If I can get them both in the room, it's always I'm going to use the word magical, but it's just something really cool happens. If I can't get them both in the room, I think the concept often lands for folks to talk about this idea of this like emotional bank account
Mm.
and kind of talk about the relationship as we have deposits that build trust and build connection in our relationship, in any relationship that we have, whether it's a parent-child relationship, a parent-parent relationship, anyone. And there are withdrawals. There are things that are done and said that kind of like take a hit or erode at the trust and connection. And so sometimes even just taking a moment to really think about it in that framework and think about, okay, in the day to day, what is that looking like right now? Like, how am I perhaps like putting deposits into this relationship with my teen? Am I, and there's a trick to this too, because not every teen um, receives deposits in the same way. So sometimes I hear parents say, like I'm letting them know what a great job they're doing and telling them, how much effort I see and everything. And we get curious about that. We're like, okay, that's great. I wonder what your teen thinks about that. I wonder if that feels like a deposit to them. Perhaps it's that quality time, that drive, to school or that drive to the mall together. They see that as quality time. And so it's also getting families to kind of communicate like what to them, what to each member feels like a deposit, what feels like a withdrawal. That can be a really helpful, tangible tool to start talking about building the relationship.
Yeah, I really love that. And this is great because just my last episode was a
Yeah,
gentleman
yeah.
that talked about the love languages and also how he had made a game with a dice that each the family can roll every day to see what language they wanted to practice for a certain amount of time. I like
Yes.
that, and there a little thing for him there, but it's so wonderful because after we had talked about that and he, I had went down and I had said to my daughter, you know, my love language is acts of service. And so when I'm bringing you
Mhm.
these plates of food and these desserts and these things and serving you, it's how I'm showing you I love you, is just so you know how to take it. And I think that it was such a great um exchange because then she knows that's what I'm showing, how I'm showing up or whatever. And so I
Mhm.
love that you said that because learning your child and your own love languages to be able to give and receive. And it's so important to receive because and receive their love language in the way that they give it because it also teaches them how to receive. And that can be a really hard thing for the ego, for pride, for people in general. How do you help parents and teens put that aside and deal with that ego sometimes in those situations?
Hmm. What a
Right?
great question. Oh, the first thing that drops into my mind is practicing getting like curious and playful. And sometimes it's just a glimmer of that because parents are coming to me and things don't feel very playful and they don't feel very, very curious. They feel stressful and hard and scary. So I think a lot of acknowledging that, yeah, like that isn't a fun place to be in, and it's so hard to feel stuck in that. And also thinking about when I'm in that space, there's no there's no possibility for movement. When we're in that place of fear, just based on brain science and stuff, we are just in survival mode, and so we can't think our way out of things or figure things out. And so intentionally seeing if we can shift a little bit to getting curious, and even inserting just a little bit of playfulness, whatever that means to parents, can really help them like step out a little bit of that place of the ego of the all
Yeah.
that stuff.
It's really hard. And I mean, I think that, like I said, I think that my shift in parenting has been our middle child is autistic and semi-verbal. He is heavy support needs. And so with him, parenting was totally. totally different. It's like a whole different, and my husband and I were just saying how we're almost glad in a sense that he's 14. We're kind of through the awkward, kind of kid stage at that point. And he never cared about his flaws, or he never was worried about, what he was going to look like to the outside world. He never carried those self judgments or
Mm,
judgments from others or anything like that. What a beautiful gift for to be able to do that. I mean, that also comes with its own deficits, unfortunately, but it's this give and take, right? And to have that is like this beautiful thing to see, and then to kind of be able to take that calm parenting you have to be in line with to be a parent for him, and to be able for the next child to show up that way, and to now be in her coming into her teens. In fact, when she was 11, I would always call her 11 teen. I always told her she was 11 teen because I mean, it was the beginning. I knew it, it was right there hitting me in the face. And so it's so hard to want what's best for them, have a memory of, well, this is what I did. This is what my parents did to get me into this
mm,
place. But also not understanding, like you said, they are receiving a huge amount of inundated information that we are not able to understand because we weren't 12 when the internet was hitting us with TikTok
mm.
dances every 5 seconds and all of the things, and we don't know what those pressures of that lifestyle could look like for our kids. How can we kind of give them the safety guidelines but also independence to start navigating that side of life and of the world?
Mm, mhm. And what a tall order,
Oh
right?
man, right? We'll
We
take
are
10 more
navigating,
episodes on this episode
right? Yes,
topic.
yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah, mm, to me, I think that there is, again, kind of going back to the values piece and being curious. And what I mean by that is, like, what if we did? Or because I often will have parents maybe come to me and say, well, do I like limit something, like this question around social media, perhaps, like, do I just limit it all? Do I take it out of her room? Do I, like, really specific questions? And as annoying as it might be, I kind of ask, hey, can we just dig into that for a minute and kind of wonder, like, what is that question actually asking? And I think oftentimes there's some guidance in there, and perhaps it's like, oh, I'm worried that she's going to, like, be inundated by a ton of influence that might be harmful for her, or I'm worried about, dot dot dot, fill in the blanks. And so then from there, we're able to maybe come back to, like, okay, well, what are some things that might help with that worry? And part of that might be the communication piece. How do we communicate, parent and child, about this topic? Part of it might be about, are there resources and education things that I need as a parent, or I
Mhm.
would find helpful as a parent to understand, this topic a little bit more? Are there certain expectations that are really important for me to put into place? And so it, again, brings you back to that place of being curious rather than do I do this or do I do that? It's like, well, what is that actually about? And then how can we tend to the deeper thing and get you resourced so that you can support your teen? Does that kind of make
Yeah.
sense?
Absolutely. I mean, because we oftentimes don't realize, especially speaking about all of the information, we can access that. We can access that. We can even go on to, I mean, I know that I had a TikTok account before my daughter did. So I knew what it was going to be about and I knew what it was going to
Mm,
entail. I don't have a Snapchat and I know she really wants that. And I don't know. That's scary to me because I don't know what it's like and I don't know what kind of things are going on there. So maybe that's a really great idea, that something I can put into place right now is that I can get on there. I don't have to interact with everybody or whatever. I'm an adult. I can make choices to be, private or whatever, but it would at least give me maybe the sense and the calm of mind when she is old enough that she's going to want to do it. And I think that the problem with maybe restricting too much learned experience here is that they will find it other places and still access it, whether you say so in your household or not. And that's, of course, a personal choice of any child or any person or communication or relationship, but it's truth and it's what has happened. So I'd rather it be something that's I can have a communication. I can have the conversation about it. Can be something that's like a little bit safer guarded, if you will, or I don't know. It's really hard with the internet and with
Yeah.
accessing them. I mean, there's all these parenting apps now, we try to use those to our advantages, I guess, but it's still
Oh.
really hard when again, your kids are curious about what they're missing out on in the world.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think back to that communication piece, with our teens in particular, because they are, and just before the show, I think you were talking about like kind of navigating that independence, that because that's a part of such an important part of adolescence, is for them to build that sense of self, that autonomy, that independence that's going to launch them into adulthood and being okay. So we want them to be able to have that, and we want them to know that we believe they are capable of doing that. And that's really important. And so communicating around things and figuring things out and knowing that it doesn't just have to be like a linear path, in the sense of like, okay, we've decided we're doing X and that's what we're going to keep on doing. Like it's okay to kind of like, hey, let's rethink this. Like, oh, I thought this was maybe a good idea, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure about this because I'm concerned about this and this, and to be able to have those communication points and those conversations with our teens as well, I think is an important part of that process of growing that independence and of growing that capacity.
Yeah. And get information from us through podcasts, getting information from
Yes.
YouTube, maybe learn some, go on YouTube and see if there are some ways you can learn about some things
Mhm.
that you might be considering for your teen to be able to use or to access things like that. What type of activities, like as a family, or even maybe activities for siblings or whatever, can we maybe start to set up with our kids to build better relationships in these teen years?
Mhm. I mean, I like the idea, and I've seen this kind of work well with families where it's giving some ownership and leadership to the different people, the different family members. I'll give you an example, like in my family, and sometimes this works, and sometimes it's a bust, and that's okay. We've learned to like just kind of be like, okay, well, we'll try again next time. So we have a day in the month that we call Try Something New
Hmm.
day, and each family member kind of gets a chance to decide like what's going to be that thing. And so sometimes it's my teen's turn to kind of decide what are we doing on the Try Something New day, and then another time it'll be mine, and then so on and so forth. And the only kind of rule, if you will, that we have is kind of like, well, don't judge what idea comes to the table. Let's 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 just give it a go
Yeah.
within reason.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I mean, I like that idea. Like, right? I just I'm sorry we can't go to Disneyland today. It's just not happening. But yeah, I find like bringing in opportunities for things that have like different voices heard is really important. I think consistency over the actual type of activity is important as well. And so if it's something like we have family dinners and we stay as consistent as we can about doing that on whatever, 2 nights a week, every night of the week, one night a week, we're consistent in it. And so people learn to know what to expect and show up.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. And of course, like it depends on your family.
That is so true because we have a family full of, well, half of um, people who aren't comfortable with eating with others or food or so we have to be really, really we have to honor everybody's where they're at, in every family. And so I love that you said that. I think our special activity we try to do and our son really tries is very structured in his time frames and that he likes things. And so he's always reminding us family drive on Saturday or Sunday, go for a family drive, go for a family drive. And so we pack up in the car and we head out and
Mhm.
I'm in Utah. I'm not sure where you're at in the world. But yeah, we go out and just go for a drive and get away from our town and get fresh air and um it's just a nice time to enjoy and sometimes they're fast and sometimes everybody you know something happens and an argument it starts usually between kids and gotta come home but you just have to be really flexible with those things but I love that you said the consistency because that is something that makes it memorable and special for everyone when they look back on it and they're like, "Oh, we did this all the time together." And I like that
Absolutely.
you said that.
Yeah, it kind of gets back to that place of like, what does our family stand for? And I've been reading this book that really talks about that, and I think at first my mind kind of went to this place of judgment of like, oh gosh, I don't know what my family stands for, and I haven't been doing these things. And then once I was able to let go of that a little bit, it dawned on me that it was like it could be from now on. From now on, our family stands for this, and that's okay too. And so, if a parent is listening to this and thinking, "Oh, we are not doing any kind of relationship building stuff, or we're just arguing all the time," or whatever the story is, it's okay. It's okay that that's where things are at, and it's also possible for it to be like, okay, from now on, we're gonna start. We're gonna start here. We're gonna start
Exactly.
small, and we're gonna build on it.
What do we do for parents that might be single parents that work a lot, that have, kiddos that are kind of and this might be a really big question too. What kind of resources in the community can they look for to help with their teen? Because, yeah, you can look for daycare when your kids are little, but what do we do with our teens when they're in this, not really old enough to be home alone and like responsible for themselves, but really need to still build relationships and maybe have opportunities to meet new people?
Mhm. It's such a beautiful question, and one of my very, very dearest best friends is a single mama, and like shout out to her and every single parent and only parent out there in the world. It's yeah, it touches my heart. So what I would say is to know that it raising teens, whether we're an only parent, whether we're a dual parent system, a multi-parent system, it is not something that is designed to be done alone. I think I heard one of your podcast guests just a little bit before saying like the thanking all the people that had influenced her in how she had created some things and that message of not doing it alone. And so I think for parents, it's like looking at what else might be a part of building those relationships. And it's important for my teen to have a relationship with me. And it's also important for my teen to have relationships with other people in their world that can serve as folks that they can trust and connect to, and maybe even folks in a mentorship role. And so here in Calgary, so I'm over in Canada right now. In Calgary, we have like a variety of different programs. A lot of them are low cost, if no cost, and there are things like mentorship opportunities, after school kind of like hangout programs, sports based, art based. Um, I know my girlfriend sometimes relies on, her siblings or the neighbor. It's really creating those kind of natural supports, knowing that it can be lots of different people. And so thinking
Yeah.
outside the box, but relying on the community resources as well.
So important. We've recently kind of decided because of our family's unique situation with, our kiddos, sometimes there are places that aren't going to be accessible for my son to be able to go to. He
Yes.
she just recently went to a STEM fair over, and saw all these science projects and all of these exciting things. And when she came home, I said, "Oh, would DT have been able to go?" And she said, "No, absolutely not. There were balloons popping and banging things over here, and he couldn't have he wouldn't have done well." And it's sad, at the same time, the cool thing, the reason that she even was able to go is because just recently we've joined the Big Brothers Big Sisters program, and I don't know if they have that in Canada as
Wow.
well. But I thought, what a better opportunity for my kiddo who is 12 years younger than her big sister, who is married and doing her own thing right now. And also, her brother can't always go to these things, and he always has to have a parent with him, so we're not always able as parents to go take her to all of these things. And so I
Mhm.
reached out and we went through the process with them, and really got an amazing mentor that it's fairly new, but it's already, I see how wonderful it can be. And like we,
Yeah.
started from scratch. We started from nowhere. And now we're, 6 weeks in or something. And there's been amazing activities that she wouldn't have been able to go to otherwise.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
And back to your comment about like receiving, I think as parents, that is a big piece, is being able to give ourselves permission to receive. And receive could be just that, saying yes, thank you, thank you, program that's allowing my daughter to go check this thing out.
Yeah.
Or thank you, like, yes, getting them like to connect with someone else who is going to see their gifts and their resources and build their resilience.
Yeah, exactly. So lots of opportunities for, helping really foster an amazing path and journey for you and your child. Um, you probably have online services, I'm assuming. Where can we go to find out more about you and connect with you?
For sure. So anything at Pyramid Psychology, we are on most social media platforms. You can also go to our website, which is pyramidpsychology.com, where we talk about the different services, whether they're one-to-one or group-based. We do have online and virtual services that are both one-to-one and group-based. And so people can check us out there and see what we're all about.
I love that. And excuse me, we didn't even really cover this, but I'm just going to plug this at the very end. Talk about how you might have experience for neurodiverse clients.
Hmm. Yeah. So, well, there's a couple things we plug into the end. I appreciate that. I'm just going to start with a little story, if that's okay. And
Please.
and so my one of my kiddos, so I have a preteen and a teen, and um, one of my kiddos was about 7 years old, and he would come home every single day from school, and he would say, I'm so stupid. I hate myself. And it would like break my heart. And it still brings up emotion to kind of think about that. And
Yeah.
yeah, I remember, I don't know, it was just like a time where he had said that. And I just decided, I was like, nope, this is not okay. It's not okay. And I need to take an action. And so we did some, some digging and some investigating and some whatever we could as parents, and discovered that his beautiful brain is not neurotypical, and he learns differently and processes information differently. And the environment that he was in was just not equipped to foster um, that knowing, that confidence, and that beautiful stuff that we saw in him. And so I think for me, I made a declaration, if you will, or a decision that day that like, okay, I was going to do everything I could to help him kind of see what worked for him, to learn how to advocate for himself, to learn how to understand himself, and not have to try and um, always change for the
Yeah.
world to fit him, but more like come out and be like, okay, this is what I need. So the world, you're going to have to work with me too.
Yeah.
And so, with that being said, I think in our practice, there are just different things that we might offer. And it's really important for us to help our clients make decisions, even if it's, I was saying to you at the beginning, when they come in, like the lighting, even
Yeah.
things like that. Like, how do we create an environment that works? And so using things like, yeah, like the lighting, the temperature, the types of textures, what would be okay to do today? Do you want to work with the whiteboard? Do you want to work on paper? Do you want to do neither of those?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of like checking to understand, and offering different ways of being able to reflect, communicate, and process things.
I love that.
It's a work in progress, to be honest.
Mm. Isn't it? And aren't we all, and constant, especially parenting, it's a constant work in progress.
Mm,
And
yeah.
yeah, this has been such a wonderful conversation today. I'm so glad that we were able to find the time and, show up for one another. And it's so great to just connect with you. I love being able to connect with people in other countries. I think it's just magical and, and fantastic, because how would we have ever met otherwise? And it's just so beautiful. So thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate having a chance to talk about things, and hopefully this podcast will find its way to someone who finds value in it.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I'd love to stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks for doing what you're doing.
Thank you.